to our Parents First seminar. And as always, it's exciting to have you here. This parent seminar is aimed at strengthening families, thereby making the world a better place. Parents First is powered by Huron Secondary School, a secondary school for boys in Enugu State. My name is Sandra Zibo, and today's topic is safeguarding kids against porn and sexting. I mean, that's a big topic, porn and sexting. And here with us is Dr. Tessy Okafor, and she's a graduate of the University of Nottingham, and the Harvard Graduate School of Education. She's a skillful youth counselor with at least 30 years experience, and she's the director of the Quadan Education Foundation. Dr. Tessy Okafor, I am excited to have you here. I mean, I've been to some of your events, and as always, I'm ready to learn. I have my pen and paper. So yeah, we're here to learn. So go, carry on.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I mean, it's really a pleasure and an honor for me to be able to address a Parents First seminar. I mean, I think it's a great initiative. I've listened into some of the previous sessions, and I think it's a great thing, you know. So if you permit me, I'll just share my screen and start the presentation. Yeah, I believe everyone can see my screen.
Yes. Yes, we can.
Great. Okay, thanks. All right. So today, I'm talking to you about guarding kids against pornography, sex texting. You know. Now, it's important to know that this is public health concern, and the concern, or what is even more worrying about this, is that many people are unaware of the seriousness or even of the serious physical, social, psychological, and indeed spiritual consequences that it can have. It's a public health concern of an insidious kind because it's sneaky, you know, it's the darkening of the mind. I borrowed this phrase from an ex-Pentecostal minister who shared his own personal experience with pornography, and he called it the darkening of the mind. He was only 23 when he came out with this confession, okay? And by the time I put you through the slide, you would understand why I say it's a slippery slope of a dirty little secret, because it's very, very insidious. I'm going to address a couple of issues. First of all, definitional issues. I'm going to define porn and define sex texting, because the two are different, but there are obvious overlaps. And I'm also going to look at what is obvious when it comes to porn and what may be suggestive, and look at another phrase used by the same ex-porn addict, because he called it the dark magic. Why did he use that word, dark magic? Then we're going to look at the underlying causes of porn and sex texting. We're going to look at some of the symptoms, the consequences, and more importantly, how we can get disentangled. There is no point looking at the underlying causes and the symptoms without looking at what we can do to support children. But then again, I know that the topic is about safeguarding kids. But the honest truth is that, you know, we have to safeguard parents if parents are going to safeguard kids, because porn that affects both children and adults alike. And I'm saying this because when I go to schools in Nigeria to give a talk on character education, which is totally unrelated, I've had instances of children coming to me in the corridors and saying, I have a problem with porn, you know, and they tell me, and I said, but where do you access this porn? They said, well, from my father's cabinet. you know, and I watch it and I can't resist it. I need help, you know, and I feel so bad that, you know, they're making this, you know, confession, and they're really worried about this addiction. And interestingly, I've had a parent report her husband. I mean, this was during a summer camp in the UK. And the lady in front of her husband said, Tessy, I want to tell you something. I said, what is it? And she said, my husband is addicted to pornography. Talk to him. And I said, really? And then the man was so angry and said, but I don't follow women, I don't do alcohol, I don't smoke. What's the problem? So evidently he didn't know that porn is a just physical, social, psychological problem. So thanks to Parents First for giving me the opportunity to address this malaise that is one more reflection, one more, let me put it this way, is reflective of the brokenness of our society. So what is sexting or sex texting, as it's often called? Well, first of all, it is the sending. Bear with me. Let me just get this. Okay. Yeah, it's the sending, receiving, or forwarding. And these three things differ. You can either send porn or receive it or forward it. So send what? Sexually explicit. Sometimes it could actually be taking nude selfies and sharing. So nude selfies and sharing. So sexually explicit messages, photographs, or images of oneself to others. And it's often done via cell phones, popular apps, websites, or more. This is what is known as sex texting. Okay. Now, the danger about sex texting, which has become more prevalent in current day society because of obviously, you know, social media and what have you, is that it leaves a digital footprint, which is permanent, which one cannot take back. So it's all about regret and what have you, you know. A typical example was what happened at Chrisland. And before you know it, within 24 hours, the video has spread all over the world. But what I noticed is that the ones who received it in the UK were quickly deleting it. Because if you are caught in the custody of such a video involving minors, you could go to jail. You could be registered on the sex offenders register, you know. So it's a serious thing. It's also, that qualifies as sex texting. And sometimes people could do it maybe out of ignorance. They've seen something that is really bad, and then they share a subgroup and say, everybody, this is what I found, or what do you have to say? But what they're sending to you is nudity, it's porn. Why do they have to send it in the first? Why are they giving publicity to porn, even if they're asking people to give an opinion, even if they don't agree with it? Now, some of us would associate sex texting with the digital age, which is more recent. But Gilkerson in 2018 actually said that in an article on intentional parenting, he actually said that it is a classic tale as old as time. You know, he said it's how it occurs. He says it's a boy meets a girl, the boy and the girl hook up. The girl texts the boy risk photos. The boy and the girl break up. And then what happens? The boy shares the risk photos with friends. What tends to happen? The breakup, and as a result of revenge, the photos are shared. It could also be the other way around. It could be the girl sharing the photos. You know, it could be the other way around. But oftentimes it's the boy, and the girl tends to be at the receiving end, or the victim, as the case may be. So pornography, well, I have a very simple definition from the Cambridge Dictionary. Pornography are books, magazines, movies, etc., or you can say social media, with no artistic value, that describe or show sexual acts or naked people in a way that is intended to be sexually exciting. And of course, the Cambridge Dictionary goes on to distinguish between soft and hard porn. You know, the soft porn being the suggestive ones, and then the hard porn being the more explicit ones. So you can see, of course, this is a very popular musician. She's beautiful. She has a great voice. And oftentimes I ask myself, why does she subject herself to nudity? Because it's not necessary. She's got all it takes to be famous, you know. And this picture I put here is a picture that was actually in the cover page of Vogue magazine. So in this particular picture, you could say, okay, she's covered. But you can see that there's something very suggestive about the pictures. If you look at the positioning of the hands and what they're doing, and then the fact that the hands are dark, it actually gives you like a satanic connotation, you know. Again, on the left-hand side is another singer who again is known for her nudity. And then at the back of her, she tattoos the devil behind her, you know. So you can see that I don't blame the minister, the ex-minister, who says that it's really the darkening of the mind because the devil is in the details. Now, what are the overlaps between sex texting and porn? Well, porn use is a predicator of sex texting. So porn use, obviously, I mean, sex texting is something that leads to pornography. And then sex texting also is a precursor of revenge porn. Because when people begin to share those images that they may have received, it could be as a result of revenge. Maybe a partner has broken up with them and they're so annoyed. And then as part of a revenge, they begin to share. And you can also have blackmail, you know, where I have a situation where a wife was actually blackmailed by her, she was having affairs and she was being blackmailed, was very rich, you know, and she was being blackmailed as a result of, sex texting and what have you. So again, it's not something that affects just children. It can also affect adults as well. And both porn and sex texting thrive on one thing, which is nudity, nakedness. And that's why chastity or modesty in one's way of dressing is so important, because we cannot control the impact of, those things we reveal when our cleavage is showing or when the clothes are too short and what have you. We can't control the impact it can have on others. Chesterton, in his book, The Common Man, said, we have no reason to support we have no reason to suppose the nudist even knows what we mean by honor. So again, I mean, I don't know, there are some people who dress in a manner that is immodest, and if you were to call them and tell them, they'll probably react with anger. So I think this applies to them because Chesterton says, they don't know what honor is. And I'm sorry, he uses such strong terms. And he says, except, that of the pig and other animals, she feels, sorry, bear with me. Yeah, I just lost except honor, except that of the pig and other animals, because she feels more comfortable without clothes. And now I'm wondering why Chesterton would use the word she, is that indicative that women are the ones who are usually guilty of nudity? Is it more prevalent among women than men? I mean, that's a question we need to ask ourselves. So whilst porn, you can say that porn tends to occur amongst men, predominantly among boys and men. You could also say that nudity tends to occur predominantly amongst women and girls. This Pentecostal ex-minister, John Dallas is his name, in 2010, talked about the dark magic. That was what he called the problem he had with pornography. And his article was published in the C.S. Lewis Institute, And he said his porn started with a decision to indulge in sin, which he had only imagined. That was how he put it. And he called it the dark magic because he said the effect it had on him was equal to a narcotic response, you know, like drug taking, being addicted to drugs. He said it was intoxicating, it led to escapism, and it was exhilarating. So basically, he always found a way to get back into it. It was very, very addictive. And then he described what he experienced, which was like a downward spiral, you know, and he began to look for satisfaction in the use of prostitutes. He had affairs with a married woman, and he was also involved in homosexuality. And he said it was a habit he continued for 5 years. He called it 5-year habit of reckless, degrading sexual practices. In fact, Jason actually in one of his videos where he discusses porn, he actually brings in a video or an interview with Billie Eilish, one of the famous singers in the US, where she says that pornography is very, very dishonorable, and that she didn't know that the sexual practices she was engaged in was so degrading because she had seen so much porn, which she regrets. It was surprising coming from a very liberal musician. And this same mister actually talked about how he strenuously avoided pornography because he realized it was having what he described as a lethal impact on his life. So he described the impact it was having as a destructive vice because he said all that was consuming him was sex, 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 you know, sex, sex, sex. And he felt, and it wasn't sex because he had tried it out in everything, in women, in men, in affairs, and what have you, but he never found satisfaction. So it was destroying him, you know. And when he got out of it, he said he strenuously struggled. He had to struggle to get out of it. It wasn't something that someone had to talk you out of. It was you determined to get out of that habit. And he said what then happened was he got out of it, and then he became a counselor and started helping people to struggle against the vice. So what are the causes of sex texting or sexting? Well, first of all, exposure to porn can cause or increase the likelihood of engaging in sex texting behavior. Exposure, you know, maybe it could be an instant impulsive, you know, exposure to porn. Also, flirting can also lead to, especially adolescent girls who do not realize the consequences or do not even understand the consequences of what they're doing. So that flirting behavior, that, you know, wannabe behavior, because they are watching a lot of musical videos, you know, and then that wannabe behavior might lead to sex texting. It could also be cohesive dating, you know, cohesive dating. Sorry, I think the word parenting there should not have been there. Bear with me. But cohesive dating could be a girl who enters into a relationship with a boy, and the boy is insisting, send me pictures of your nudity, you know. And it can even happen amongst adults, where you have an adult persuading another adult to send me a picture. I want to see the real you, because there are many fake women, you know. And then it could also be as a result of revenge porn, you know. It could be bullying, which also thrives on blackmailing. And it could be malparenting, you know, parents failing to monitor, the absence of parents not being there. And or parents not being good role models. Like the boy who approached me in the corridor of the school where I gave a talk and told me I accessed those videos from my father's cabinet. So the parents had those what they call adult videos, XX rated videos, and the boy was accessing those videos and feeding on them, you know. So are those videos good for parents? You be the judge when I finish the presentation. So what are the causes of porn? Well, similar to sex texting, it could be lust, you know, it could be curiosity, or it could be the other way around, curiosity leading to lust, you know. It could just be curiosity or, you know, comparisons in the head, in the mind. It could be as a result of low self-esteem. It could be grooming, you know, grooming, especially, and grooming can occur, you know, due to peer pressure or bad peer pressure. You know, you could go to a friend's house innocently, and then the friend grooms you by putting on a video, an X-rated video, and is inviting you to see the X-rated video. That's grooming, part of sextortion, exploitation, you know. And they think it's fun. They think it's fun because they do not understand the consequences, you know. Even some adults who have a child's mind may not understand the consequences. And, you know, when adults like drugs have a way of, you know, rewiring the brain, you know. And the same thing with pornography. It also has a way of rewiring the brain, that certain things that may be obvious to someone who is not indulging in that kind of behavior may not be so apparent to an adult who has been indulging in porn, you know. Excuse me. And then there are also mental health consequences. We're going to look at that. And it can bring about relationship problem, like the married woman who told me, my husband is involved in pornography. And the man was excusing himself, saying that, well, I don't do women, I don't do drugs, I don't do alcohol. But the porn, there's a problem with it. That's why the wife was so concerned and blotted out that it was a problem in their relationship. So what are the signs of porn addiction? Because it's automatic, you know, anybody who is involved in porn, you could tell. That's where parents need to be more aware that something is going on. I remember a lady who told me that her 8-year-old daughter was always glued to her phone, and in such a way that was so addictive, you know. And one day she decided to move closer and snatch the phone from her. And to her shock, it was porn, you know. So one of them is sneaking around to watch, sneaking around, you know, hiding away, isolating yourself. It could also be anger and hostility when there's a problem, you know. And inability to stop is also a sign of addiction, that compulsive addiction, despite the negative effects. And again, insatiable, you know, like you are not satisfied, never satisfied in your matrimonial relationship. You're never, you know, it's also a sign of addiction, you know. And you would see how even Jason ever describes how one starts with porn, how it escalates. You know, you're looking for higher turn-ons, and those are typical signs of addiction. And which happens with drugs, you know, you start with a very mild one, and then you want higher, higher, higher. You just keep, you know, going up, you know, the ladder. And constant craving, you know, constant craving for porn. You are hooked and preoccupied with porn, so much so that even a child in the classroom might just switch off and begin to fantasize, you know, or even an adult might begin to fantasize, or, you know, an adult who sees another adult does not see a pretty face or, you know, woman or man, but begins to see the nakedness, like your eyes are almost undressing the person. And that's a sign of preoccupation with porn. And you can actually tell it. You can tell, you know, the person who is preoccupied with porn, because those eyes are not clean. Those eyes are not clean. And the consumption with porn all the time, you know, because there are those flights of fantasy, always moving away. And that's why the mental health is related to flight, because mental health is impaired. It's like almost like schizophrenia, a double life, you know. And productivity is hindered because the person will not be able to have subjects that require a lot of attention. And so subjects like, I'm not saying that the ones who are good in maths are not involved with porn, but I think practically every subject in school now requires a lot of attention, especially if it's not a subject that requires you to recall information. If you have to apply information, analyze information, synthesize information, if you're addicted to porn, you would not be able to do all those things effectively. And then even in the workplace, productivity may be hindered as a result of porn. And that's because people who are addicted to porn, you can find porn on their laptop at work. And sometimes they just switch it on, you know. And that's why many people, if you are found with porn in a place like the UK, you'll be fined, you go to jail, you face persecution because it's a serious offense, you know, especially if it's child pornography. But yeah, once porn starts, people want everything that can give them those turn-ons, even inanimate objects. And porn also induces sexual dysfunction, you know, is believed to, and this is from research, believed to cause sexual I think it's called inerectile, if you know what that means. I'm aware that some children are watching, but yes, it causes sexual dysfunction. It causes a distorted idea of sex and intimacy. And it also causes porn withdrawal symptoms, which are typical of sleep impairment, depression, anger, and sadness. So all of this come from a research from a porn treatment admin center in Washington. So what are the dangers of sex texting? Well, first of all, sex texting can lead to bullying and blackmail because the person almost has you under his or her control. I'm going to share the pictures of your nakedness. I'm going to share like a revenge sort of thing. So it leads to bullying and blackmail. It also has criminal consequences as well, because in a place like, I don't know about Nigeria, possibly because I think with the Chrisland saga, the government was particular and said anybody found in custody of that video would be prosecuted. So I don't know what the law right now in Nigeria is regarding that. But in the UK, it's a government and there is no excuse. Even if there was concern on the part of the people, even if you were not the one who was the originator of the deal, but you were just doing it, you will face criminal consequences and you'll be convicted. So you have the label as an ex-convict, and what is worse, you enter the sexual offenders register. So it's a very serious thing. And one of the other dangers is that you may be groomed, or there's also the of pedophilia, pedophiles. You could be a victim, especially when it occurs amongst children and it gets into the hands of adults. They can target that child and begin to groom that child, and that can be a victim of many of the pedophiles we have hanging around and attacking children. It could also lead to sextortion, where people can try to exploit. It's reputational because if such of you, what I mentioned at the beginning about leaving your digital footprint, because those pictures are permanent. So sometime in the future, it's going to come up and haunt you, videos of yourself that you've shared. Wife of the former minister or president, she was, I had shared some nudity, because when she modeled, and when she became the prime minister, oh my God, it was terrible. It was such a because those pictures were dug up and being shared. And imagine if one in the future is, maybe you're going to get a job as a chief executive, and then